Hey, 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 what is going on, IK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are back again, giving you that straight up Gucci pesto sauce of IK goodness. Today, we are going to be touching on new feedback and suggestions, or better yet, our latest round of them. Right now, this is going to be very different than the last video we did from kind of post 1.8 update community feedback. This is going to be more focused on what kind of future features, content, ideas would we love to see in the game. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about are things that we have crowdsourced from my Discord server, from players that have provided feedback and suggestions over probably the past 7 to 8 months, along with just refining this list constantly. And some of these things have been included, but I just think that they're very important to always kind of keep in mind, right? It's like out of sight, out of mind. If you don't hear about it that often, right, you're never going to really be thinking about it all the time, or possibly when and even how frequently, you might like to remind people of saying, hey, this would be a great idea to add into the game. So before we really fully dive in, as always, make sure you guys sub, like, ring that notification bell, and of course, if you want to join and be a part of our Discord, you can find a link to that in the description, also the pinned comment down below. Okay, so where we're going now is I really want to start off by saying I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to be very pioneering type level, or even just next level if you want to just be super cool noob guy, then yeah. These are great things that I truly believe every kingdom builder needs to have in their game. Things that the majority, if not all kingdom builders currently do not have the majority of these things, if not even all these things in their games. And these, I think, are very important because we need to keep in mind that we are playing a kingdom builder. We're not playing a progression player builder game, even though that is included within the name and title of games within this genre. But we are playing a kingdom builder. Right, the objective is to build your kingdom, right, with all the moving parts that go into it. And I really think that the next level that these games within this genre can take is by allowing kingdoms to better self-govern themselves, right, to have more autonomy, a little bit less oversight, right, and kind of doing the, let's work smarter, not harder type mentality. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to dive into some of these things as fast as I possibly can. Right now, there are going to be some topics that we'll have along with some time cards that you'll be able to see if you want to fast forward at any point. But we're going to talk about server. We're going to talk about server king queen. We'll talk about alliances. We'll talk about some game points, some patch notes, contention of relics, PvP, immortals, some of the interface visual KVK stuff, some of the cities within, or some of the buildings within the city, market, artifacts forge, dragons, bundles, tower of knowledge, and maybe at the very end we'll do some miscellaneous. Okay. So the first thing we're going to touch on here is the server. I think it's very important when it comes to kind of server, and this is kind of loosely related to server king queen, is that we have the ability to send server mails that look very similar to alliance mails. An example of this is that if I want to go in here and I want to send a server mail, I have to go to Kingdom Declaration, which, a quick side note, if you look at Kingdom Declaration, you'll notice this has actually either been bugged or it just has not been working for a while. When I go here to the glance of worlds, or like the global server list, and I click on 79, here you can see the Kingdom Declaration at the bottom. If I click on that, you'll notice there's nothing there. This has actually not been working for quite some time. I do hope that they fix it. Next is that if we look at sending an actual mail, remember, if you send a declaration or a notice, both of these will actually send as a server-wide mail to every player in your kingdom. Really what they should have happening is have the declaration mail be separate, where it does not send a server-wide mail to everyone, but it just applies to the declaration board on that Glance of Worlds list. Then the notice, which can be, aptly dubbed as the kingdom mail, this will be the one that sends. Now, for when we send these mails out, the challenge is that when you click on this and you start typing, the moment that you click OK or you click away from it, the mail automatically sends, right? It doesn't allow for you to kind of read the mail, preview it before sending. Very similar to like when you send an alliance mail. When I send an alliance mail, I go mail, the subject line, I can actually do a subject line, which is great. And then I can type in my message body, and if I click out, nothing sends, right? I actually have to go down here and click the send button. So this is very important to do, and I think it's something that needs to be added in. So there's a few things here. One, we need to be able to actually preview the message before we send it. Ideally, just turn it into like an alliance mail, right? And just call it kingdom mail. Even here, you can say, right, kingdom mail, right? Something like that would be easy. And then again, right, first off, let's increase the characters, because right now you can only send it if it's 300 characters or less, compared to an alliance mail, which is 800 characters or less. This needs to be increased at minimum to 1,000 characters, right? Ideally, 2,000 characters would be great, but I will settle for 1,000 character increase, right? We need to be able to have some kind of, like I said, preview and then a send button there for number 2. And we also need for the mails to be more identifiable when they show up in the inbox, right? An example of this, if I go to system mail, right, and I scroll down here, you'll see where it says Kingdom Declaration. You will see that the mails themselves, right, are really not anything kind of special, right? They just looks like a blank parchment here. There's 2 things I recommend. 1, have this be red. So like this is a purple box. Have the envelope be red and then have a crown at the top. Easy something to make it more identifiable. Number 2, and probably the most important part, for any unread alliance, and this can apply to alliance mails as well, for any unread alliance mails or king's mails, right, or server mails, have them automatically show up at the top of your system or alliance inbox. Then, once you click on it and you finish reading it and then you click off, right, then it will go back to the original place in which it was sent on the timeline, right? This would allow for things like alliance mails and system mails or server mails to be more read, better received, and more identifiable to players that are in your server. Okay. And let me see, what else do we have here? The next thing I want to touch on real quick is being able to raise, to custom set the migration limit, right? So currently on the migration condition, you only have 4 options. I think this would be really good if we allowed for servers just to really autonomously govern themselves, right? Give them all the power in how they set the migration limit, and then they can dictate who comes into their server or not. Remember, it is not wise for people to like leave this at like, let's say 500k power. Otherwise, they're never going to get players that are higher than that coming in, right? So, but again, allow them to treat it like it is their own country that they are building. That's essentially what the name of the game is, right? So again, let us do, or I should say the name of the genre. So my recommendation is have no limit and then have custom limit. And that's it, right? That's all you need. And then let people set the limit however they want. Now, if for whatever reason that may not be in the cards, right, or that might be difficult to necessarily code, then let's take the easier route. Add in 750K and then add in 500K. Right? And ideally, it'd be cool if we could add in like 1.25 and then 1.75, right? But at minimum, or even if you just want to have it be lower than that, just add in 500K. I think it'd be great to add in 500 and 750K because there's enough real estate here to actually do that, right, where it is feasible. Okay, then let's go with the next thing here, and this is kind of more game-wide, but I would love for them to create a friends system. I think this is very important for the game and its quality of life and how people engage in the game, right? Right now, you can really only engage realistically, right, on a consistent basis with members of your server. But if you add in a friends system, and let's just say you make the friends limit 1,000, right, you can go into any server and add people from that server. Sometimes you'll notice that players will post chords in a world chat or kingdom chat from other servers. And the challenge is that, right, it'd be nice if, one, you can add these people, primarily so you can message them, but I actually also think it'd be great if you can just message players from other servers no matter what. Even if you're just going in and viewing that server. This is something you can do in other kingdom builders and I think would be a great healthy addition. So 1, I think you need to be able to message people from other servers. 2, we need to be able to add a friends list here so then you can add people. And then 3, from that, create custom group chats with any players in the game or from your server. This can be a fantastic thing to do. And then maybe you can put a limit on those group chats for, let's just say, 500 people. Right, to start. But this is going to do a lot of great things. It's going to allow for you to do things like organizing any kind of conversations or talks with players from other servers ahead of time in game without having to rely on things like Discord or setting up additional accounts, right? If it's for things like KVK, if you're looking to set up group chats in game for maybe your alliance leaders and officers, right? So you have an in-game group chat along with something on Discord. I mean, these are just some ideas. Maybe you have a big gift codes group chat, right? Maybe you have a title giving chat, right, for people that want certain city buffs, right, and you can kind of manage that between your alliances. I mean, just some ideas to spout off, but I think this would be a great healthy addition to add in some kind of a friend system into the game. The next thing here is going to be extending the leaderboards. Please, dear Buddha, if we can, this would be fantastic. And what I mean here is by going in and extending the leaderboards predominantly for the players. And this could be something like the Lord Honor Boards, Power, Strongest Troop Power, Total Troop Number, and Castle Level. So I think it'd be great if we could, just as an example, looking at Lord Power, can we extend this to either 600 or 900? Now, I understand going to 1,000 might be difficult because you really kind of have this divisibles of 3, right? So it's probably better to stay in line with that, where your overall could be top 200 or 300, and then each of the factions could be 200 to 300, right, deep going into them, which would give you arguably, right, your top 600 or top 900. I think extending this is a must and would be fantastic. The next thing, right after I do a little bit of nose blowing, oh God, that was gorgeous. Okay, now the next thing that we'll get into is going to be copying and being able to copy and paste chat messages and mails. I think this is effortlessly important, something that the community has been asking for a while. If someone posts something here, and I think a really cool option would actually be linking, right? And this is kind of more of a beyond thing, but I think at minimum, just being able to press and highlight this, and it says report, I want to be able to copy this. Just like I would if somebody sent out a system mail or an alliance mail that had certain information that I want to copy and paste somewhere, or even if it just includes their Discord, right? Maybe there's a server link for the Kingdom Discord or for that Alliance's Discord. I can go here and then I can just press this and then I can copy it, right? And then I can easy copy paste that into my Discord and then immediately join that server from that invite. Copying and pasting things is just really important. Maybe someone types something up really good in World Chat or Kingdom Chat. It's formatted, and it's just something that is a lot easier than maybe typing it up yourself. You can do a quick copy paste. I think being able to copy paste things from in-game, absolutely necessary. The next thing we'll touch on here is, we already did touch on that one. Okay, so the next thing here is going to be allowing for some BBCode to be used. An example of this would be if I want to send a mail, right? I want to be able to go in here, type mail, and I want to be able to say like be bold, right? I want to say like everyone, comma, and then I want to do like be bold, right? Maybe I want to do an underline in there as well. So, I want to do like just some easy underlining, would be fantastic. And I'll just go like you, and then bam, right? So I've done a little bit of coding, and it says illegal text. I can't add that in, but just being able to do that to where I can maybe bold certain areas of a message, I can underline, maybe I can increase the size, maybe just change the color, really simple stuff just to do, I think would be fantastic. It would also help take the game to the next level. Okay, now we're going to talk about server king and queen tools, which I think is going to be an absolute must. So things that are just really going to help your server govern itself a lot better and more efficiently. This is going to be, for example, an idea here would be a report that generates for the king or queen currently, and only for them, where you can see how many hyper players, how many active players, how many present status players, and how many silent players you currently have in your server. It doesn't have to give names, it just gives numbers, right? It could be a mail that generates, that is sent to just you from the system, or it can be something where it's a tool right within here, and you just click on it, and then every day at reset, it just updates the numbers and tells you that how many of these players. I think that would be amazing. From that, you can do things like send system mails with that type of information in there as a way to kind of boost morale. You can keep that up to date with your management team, right, for your officers and your leads, and kind of just show them on kind of a daily, weekly basis, how are you doing, right? How many active players do you totally have? Because this is a question that a lot of servers get, right? Which you'll have some players that'll ask, hey, how many active players are in your server before they maybe even decide to migrate there? This would now give you an opportunity to have that information be available, even if it's just to one person. I think something like that is a great quality of life tool. The next thing here is the ability to set, or better yet, send statistical mails via server mails, right? So if I want to send a kingdom notice or a kingdom mail, I want to have the option to be able to send a statistical mail. And it doesn't have to list out who actually voted yes or no or clicked one option or the other, but just know how many. We just want to know the number, right? Keep it super simple and rare and bare bones there. If I send a question out and I say, how many people are planning to participate this KVK, right? Answer this for yes or click the X for no, right? Just something as easy as that, right? Or if I want to say, hey, how many people have read this mail, right? Or something like that. Again, just being able to get some type of data polling is, I cannot tell you how amazing that is and how great it would really be for every single kingdom out there. Okay, the next thing we have is being able to customize. And this is kind of like the next level thing, but essentially customize options on your statistical mail. So instead of it just saying yes or no, maybe give an option where you can say you can have up to 4 options or something on your stat mail, right? 4 answers, and you can custom name each of the answers, right? Maybe you get 20 characters or 30 characters per, or even just something lower than that. And then you can set that however you want, and then you can have people do those. In addition, add 24 hours to the statistical mails, right? Having a full 24 hours when you send a statistical mail out is vitally important. This should also hopefully be applied to alliance mails. Okay. The next thing here, and this is more so, I think, kind of a similar thing. This is something we'll see in sometimes some system mails that are sent out from the developer. And I'll give you an example here, which is, okay, here. So you can see that if I look at this notice of Spring Fiesta, I have options on how I can reply. If I click a heart, then okay, thanks for your reply. It probably shows that on some back-end number statistic. Having a button here when you send a system mail out, and I'll give you an example. If I go here, and there's a button down here that says read, right? And you can click on that to show that you have read the mail. Something like that would be awesome if they just kind of either included that on default, or if maybe there was like a checkbox when you're sending the mail on, hey, do you want to have like a read receipt? Right? Or you want to have a read button show up. And that way people can click if they read it, just to show you maybe what your level of engagement is on the server. That would be fantastic as well. The next thing here is, and I think really important, if the king or queen had an opportunity to see every single player that migrates into their server or leaves the server, right, via migration, would be absolutely amazing. And it doesn't, like I said, it does not have to be something that everyone on the server has access to, but at least something that the king or queen can see that, right? Some kind of a report, or even if it's something like looking at a kingdom log, right? Maybe it's like, if I click on a kingdom log, you can see everything that the king has done. So having something here that shows like a migration log would be absolutely fantastic. I think this is something that is very much needed. And then from here, right, you can also do something where when you look at the log, right, you can actually click on, like, so if they migrated in, I should be able to like click on this and it'll show up their profile card, right? So if you want to message them or if you want to see where they've gone, that would be great too. The next thing here is going to be, right, allowing for approved links to be used when sending mails, right? And I'm talking specifically things like Discord servers, maybe some YouTube videos, right? Again, this is kind of not really a major mandatory thing, but I wanted to include it because I think if you're sending out something like Discord server links, right, you're going to get a preview of the Discord server before you join it. So again, there's already some margin of error there, or some oversight, if you will, or gating. But I think allowing for certain approved links could be fantastic to be used. The next thing here is right, creating I think on the inbox, it would be really awesome if there was like a notification, but I partly think that what I talked about earlier, by just allowing for things like alliance mails and server mails just to kind of auto pin to the top until you've read them and then clicked off of them, is a great solution to that as well. And I'm just going to stick with that for now. The next thing here would be for an alliance tab, or actually, never mind, that actually kind of already goes into what I just said. Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about then is alliances. So for alliances, we're going to touch and talk about how having an option to keep gaining alliance credits by leaving marches in level 10 or just maxed level cities as kind of a maintenance credit, right? Remember, you are giving up having a march being able to be used to gather resources because you have to basically stick them in a city to keep that maintenance cost going so you can keep generating alliance credits. So there is a give and take when you think about giving up a march and what that really means, right? That's however many resources, that you're losing per day. So I think allowing for when cities are at max level, let marches be sent there as kind of a maintenance credit that you can get from earning more alliance credits. The next thing here is, and we talked about this with the increasing alliance mails, and then we talked about them being more noticeable. Okay, the next big thing here is having space teleports available at earlier alliance levels. An example here would be something like this. So again, you can only start accessing these at Alliance level 9. I think you need to be able to access Alliance level teleports at like level 5 or 6, a lot earlier. And honestly, probably level 5 would be more appropriate. In other games, you can actually purchase migration teleports immediately from your Alliance shop the moment that you earn enough credits. There's no restrictions. The next thing here I think that would be really great is if we had an option where you automatically add all members to Alliance group chats, or even just a button where you check off where it'll just auto add people the moment that they come in, right? And I think this really should kind of be set by default, where if I have an Alliance group chat set up, and you can see here like we showed a little earlier, is anytime someone joins, they should just automatically be added to these, right? And then if they want to leave, then that's where you would manually add them. I think the easiest way is you auto add. But even if not, there should at least be something here where I can click manage group, and then I can click add all current members, right? Or add current members, or even just add current, right? Something like that. But again, by default, it'd be great if they just had it where everyone is auto joined. That would make things a lot easier. All right, let me see where I'm at now on more distinct. Okay, fantastic. So the next thing here is ability to open player profiles from the Alliance application window. So if someone applies to your Alliance, right, and I go here to invites, right, or sorry, not invites, where's my application? So if I go to applications, let's say someone applied. The ability to click on their name so I could potentially click their profile and then message them would be absolutely fantastic. Something I would really love to see. The next thing here is, and this is kind of similar to what we talked about with the server mails, right? But a separate button marked read or read that players who view mails, right, can click on so we can kind of see their engagement. I know we briefly talked about that earlier. Okay, and then we did talk about the customizing of statistical mails, right? I would love to see that kind of applied to alliances as well. Okay, next, what we're going to briefly talk about here is going to be contention of relics. And one of the things I really want to touch on here with contention of relics is I would love for things like the Chaos Beast to just be appropriately scaled in power. Because, and again, I'm not sure however many other people feel this way, but at least when I'm kind of going around and attacking Chaos Beasts, even at my current troop power level, right, which is kind of around like what, upper 150s, is I feel like I still have to hit them twice at minimum just to actually kill one. If not, maybe 3 times, just depending, from what I can recall. And personally, I think that if you're at like 150k troop power and you're attacking a level 1 beast, you should be able to zero that level 1 beast, right? Maybe a level 2 can be different, but I really think that the power, right, of scaling those to make that stage in stage 1 of Contention of Relics more relevant for more people to participate in the Chaos Beast stage would actually be a lot better. So I personally think we should scale the power down a bit. I don't know what that should be set at, but I personally don't feel that I need to be at 150k troop power just to zero a level 1 Chaos Beast. That just seems really too strong for me in my opinion. And so again, I'd love to know what you guys think on that as well. The next thing here for PvP, and this is something that has just been widely requested, I do think they need to add in a rally stacking option, right? Again, the current way that you essentially can rally players, and let me just kind of give you an example here. So if I go to someone that is just not in, like if I go to Itachi and I click rally, I would love to be able to have something where I can go in and have, oh gosh, let me here, I'll just do this just for the sake of the, how long, oops, no, here, wait, my bad, I'll burn 2 things. Okay, so if I click rally, right, and I see 5 minute, 3 minutes, I wish they had a 1 minute option, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter because once you have at least, I think, one more person join, if not, after you set it, you can immediately hit the rally. But I think they need to have an option here where it's like a shotgun rally, right, where you basically, where it's kind of like the idea from normal rallies that we've seen in other kingdom builders, where you just have a bunch of people join and then they will improve the overall march power. And you can scale it, right, for people at T4, T3, right, it just adds a certain amount of like reduced power, like maybe there's a 10% down if it's not T5 or whatever the highest tier is, or whatever the tier of the rally leader is, right. But then when the troops join, it stacks on to the current power, right. So if you have someone that's 100k joining, right, and like let's say you're T5 and you start the rally and you have 100,000 troops, and then you have someone else join and they're T5 and they have 75,000 troops. Okay, well now the power is 175, right? So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can have it be, even if you just want to bare bones it, right? If you don't want to sit here and do all the math and the tinkering to apply the other troop skills, right? Just add on the overall power, right? Really at bare bones, that would be minimum what you could do to really just emulate the same effect of what we've been asking for, which is the ability to rally bigger players, right? Or essentially whales like you can in other kingdom builders. And then if you have like T4, maybe you have like a 10% reduction in troop power, right? So it'll add it on, but it just won't be the full ratio because it's not the same, right? You can do these kinds of like margin of error appropriate scaling when it comes to adding to the rally. But I think at bare minimum, just add it. So that way, an example would be if I go here and I look at someone's troop power, right? And let's say Extreme and Flock want to rally someone who's, 250 or something like that, right? Then they'll add together and now they'll be 482, right? There'll be 482 troop power, right? And they'll be attacking this person who's at, 260 or something like that, right? Because again, in other games, that can happen to you where you get rallied by so much and you lose a bunch, right? Because of that, right? Maybe that rally would just either kill, have more kill, more dead that you'll take, maybe just a larger hospital bill, but you might take the same prosperity hit, right? Maybe it'll do a little bit more prosperity or it just kind of treats it as one hit, whatever it may be, even though usually the power is kind of indicative of how much prosperity it's going to take. But just something like that where you can add this in a very simple, basic way that, again, is not game breaking. It just gives you options to do, again, more impactful rallies, right? Because again, you kind of have like the machine gun rally that's happening now, but we'd like to see a shotgun style type rally. So I think doing something like that is something everyone's been asking for. I actually think would be a great addition to the game, and you can do it in a very easy, simplistic way. Then we finally get to some of the Immortals here, right? So I think it'd be really cool if maybe they added in like a synergy bonus if you had like one of each Immortal, right? I think that could be cool. But again, I understand the system that they're going with where they really want to like tailor it to kind of sticking to your own element, and possibly by adding in one of each element may not necessarily be something they go in, but I just wanted to throw it in regardless because I think it's really cool. I think it could be a good idea. One of the other things is Immortal skin rewards. I think this would be really cool if we kind of like took this idea from other games, but also kind of adding on what they're kind of doing currently with the emotes and the animated emotes, but do it in a way where you can maybe create like really cool kind of custom skin sets, right? Like lightning themed, earth themed, and you just have different color styles. And that way, when your march is marching on the battlefield, similar to when you add on your shadow dragon castle skin, the march actually has its own theme, its own set, right? So they look purple. They kind of look like they have like dragon armor on. Something like that would be really cool where you can add it on, but like instead of it being a castle skin, when your troops go out, your troops just look really cool, right? They just have like their own set. And then when you watch them in battle, they have their own skin on the replay as well. That would be, I think, a fantastic way to do a different level, a different way of monetization that is not extremely focused on it being progression based, right? Or it having a factor or giving you some percentage, right? Thinking outside the box. I think would be really cool. The next thing here would be like increasing, I know we talked about increases of element advantages for troops, right? This is something that we briefly touched on in the last one. I think this other last one for the Attila nerf, we talked about that as well. Okay, so now we're going to get to the interface and visual KVK portion of this video, which is going to be allowing for players to zoom out more, right? This is something that has actually been an ask, but if I zoom out as far as I can, this is it. I want to be able to zoom out farther than this. I want to be able to zoom out to where I can see the border, like the district colors, even if it's like a little translucent or transparent. I want to be able to see the cities from like a more outside perspective. I want to be able to zoom out more to maybe where I can see more players, right? Again, the example I would give is if you look at a game like Rock, right? And actually, I will briefly show this just for a moment. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to log back in here. Okay, I will. But I'm just going to give an example because I think this is very relevant to what I'm talking about in this. Sometimes I think it's important to give actual examples, or I should say visual examples of what I'm talking about. But let me load in here real quick, and then I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about because I think this is a good feature that can really do a lot. All right, so let me give you an example. Once I can start moving, okay, great. So now I'm going to zoom out, and you can see just like this, I can zoom out of my city. But then if I keep going, right, this is kind of what it looks like in IK when you're like fully zoomed out. But if I keep going, now you can start seeing like, the flagging borders. You can see like the gates, right? This could be like the cities. Right, again, here you can see some of the objectives. These would be like cities as well. And then I can see, again, I can't zoom out all the way, but I can at least kind of look at the landscape of the map. I can see certain objectives. And I just think that would be a fantastic addition if we added that into IK. The next thing here when it comes to KVK is I would really love for them to kind of go with a standard gate opening to see how that plays out. And that would be something like the gates going into zone 2 from your zone 1 open first, and then the gates going into zone 3 from zone 2 open next, and then you would have the adjacent gates opening up from your zone 2, right? For like the zone 2 adjacent gates would open, and then you would eventually at the end have the zone 1 adjacent gates open, right? And of course, once zone 3 gates open, you could still go and attack another zone 3 gate and then kind of go into their zone 2 that way. But then shortly after that, you would have the zone 2 adjacent gates open. And then lastly, you have the zone 1 adjacent gates open. So basically, it would be kind of opposite than it was for the trial season KVK. And I would really love to see how that would play out compared to the way that it played out in trial season, where they basically opened up the entire map in zone 1, which just had a lot of, I would say, endgame impacts that were probably unintended. And then the last thing I'll say is I think some better endgame rewards. I know one of the things I noticed is that it seems like the best KVK rewards are really just from controlling as many cities as possible and just banking on those constant interval cycle rewards that you get. But it'd be cool if maybe they improve some of the endgame rewards, because this was something, and I wish I was in KVK to show you an example. And I'm sure someone can comment on this down below for us on, what was an example of some of the endgame rewards that people felt were a little lackluster, and maybe what you think they could be improved to. And then the next thing we're going to touch on here is the market. And this is something we've kind of heard rumored and hinted at, but I do want to hammer this home. I think it's very important that we keep this up, where we eventually add more people to the market, and more specifically, probably just more Immortals to Hall of Immortals, right? Allowing for more epics to be pulled from Hall of Immortals and making sure that the ratio is consistent, right? If you're going to add someone to King of the Hill and you're going to add someone to your Wheel of Fortune, you need to add another epic to Hall of Immortals, right? It needs to be an even 1-to-1-to-1 ratio on what we do. That is something that I can guarantee you your player base will be so much more engaged, and they will play this game longer because they really feel like you are caring, right? If you give the spenders something, give the free-to-play something. Have it be a 1-to-1 ratio, and that to me is one of the best ways on how you can sustain your game for a long period of time and increase the level of appreciation and engagement, right? Okay. From that, and then again, like Tronfi of Fate would arguably be the same thing. I think for Tronfi of Fate, right, in my opinion, for that event, and that's probably the next thing, is Tronfi of Fate, you need to be able to unlock every single Immortal. Every single gated Immortal that is gated, you need to be able to unlock that Immortal, right, with the green gems going through those things. Remember, as a free-to-play player, it is not realistic that you're going to unlock every single one. You are going to have to min-max and probably focus on one Immortal at a time, compared to a spender who's going to be able, it could take you a year or longer, right, to just at minimum unlock each of the Immortals in Tronfi of Fate. And that's just to do the unlock, right? Whereas a spender could just already have them all maxed. So again, there's no reason in my mind why you would not allow for every single Immortal that is currently gated at the moment that costs money to add them in Tronfi of Fate. I think every Immortal eventually needs to be in there, and hopefully this gets added in sooner than later. The next thing that we'll talk about here is dragons. So I know this is something that we mentioned, right? One of the new additions is that you can now unlock other chests while you have one going, right? So I can click here and click Purify and it'll work. Fantastic addition. I would really love to see them do something where you are able to make things like the Wind Dragon more accessible. This is something we have heard rumored in one of the earlier IK Q&As, where they said eventually green dragons are probably going to get their own gnome boss or just have additional ways to become more accessible. But I really think that if they added green dragons or a gnome boss that gives green dragon shards in the game, that would be fantastic. And then the last thing here, I think, is just, so this is the very last thing now, which we're pretty much getting done to. And this is kind of like the miscellaneous topic of just some kind of outlier things that I wanted to mention. And really the only thing I pretty much have here is I would really love for them to do something where maybe, two things. One, it'd be really cool if they added in like different tier levels of participation rewards. So for certain events, if you have 50, 75, 100 people that are all participating in the same event, right, and they're all engaged, maybe you get like a participation bonus reward from some of these. And I think that could be something cool that maybe they tack on to other events that would also allow for higher levels of engagement, right, within events and also just within your server. I think the second thing I'm going to talk about here, and I'm going to say this very mildly, with not a lot of value at the moment, but I think doing things like server merges and fusions, or fusions, if you will, is something that could potentially be looked at. I'm not going to say that I'm really sold on it yet, because I think it's something that just has to be very carefully considered on kind of when you do it and how you do it, because you can easily run into challenges where you merge servers and then they potentially become the new super server, right? Now, I think that's why it's very important to kind of know what some of the stats are in servers, how many active players are there, right, which we mentioned before from some of these stats that we can see. And that allows, I think, just for more transparency when we're doing things like that. I think, for example, if you did something where you're like, hey, we're going to merge servers so they at least at minimum have 1,000 active players, right? Like that's our threshold. It's not going to be any more, any less. We just want to get it to around 1,000 active players, right? And then, maybe what you'll do is you'll look at, for example, all of the servers that have less than 1,000 active players, or maybe you look at servers that have around 500 or 500 or less active players, and then you'll look at that. You look at parameters such as, right, how many, who are the strongest players in the server, right, and then you try and balance that out where you're not just putting two servers together that just have so many strong players, but you're really trying to kind of like balance out the free to play activity range from like the top end range when you're doing things like that, just to name a couple factors. Again, I'm not saying this is something I think should happen right now, but I do think it's an interesting concept. If it's done right, with good intentions, I think it could potentially work out. But I would love to know what you guys think on that. And of course, any other topics that I touched on for any of the pieces of feedback, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, I will also be sending this video to the IK team along with the document as well that we've typed up, which I have already sent the doc, but I will at least send this video to them as well, as I think a lot of these additions are just great common denominators, things that universally could be used very well and hopefully appreciated by the majority, if not every single server out there. That is it from me. Until next time, we will, of course, catch y'all later.